afternoon. Here we are at our next meeting of, and I'd like to call it to order. So, Karen, would you please give us the roll?
Trustee Broderick. Trustee Bazinski.
Here.
Trustee Garcia Guillen.
Present.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Mahalik.
Here.
Trustee Morales.
Here.
Trustee Stamborski.
Here.
Trustee O'Connell.
Here. And Alicia, since you won the election, you're gonna have.
Oh boy. Lucky me. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Very exciting week we've had here. You know, I know you're all happy that Gwyneth Paltrow got off.
Yes.
So, you know. So, do you have any public comments, Karen?
None that I know of.
None that we know of. Okay. Then 5 is closed session. We want a closed session here tonight for 2C1 and 2C11. It's probably going to be a little while, this closed session, but we'll be back.
Okay. Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Broderick.
Aye.
Trustee Bazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Garcia Guillen.
Yes.
Trustee Mahalik.
Yes.
Trustee Morales.
Yes.
Trustee Stamborski.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And we're right down to number 6 with an asterisk. Return to regular session. So, Karen, can you?
I need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Motion return to regular session. Trustee Mahalik.
Yes.
Trustee Morales.
Yes.
Trustee Broderick.
Aye.
Trustee Bazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Garcia Guillen. Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Stamborski.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, number 7 has a number 4 and a number 5. So, dying.
Thank you, Chairman O'Connell and trustees of the board and members of the JJC community. You crack me up sometimes. It's you know, I think this moment in the history of JJC, our ERP implementation especially, is going to be, you know, looked upon with great significance. Recognizing that this is a project that impacts the entire college community. And so, you know, as many of you know, trustees, we initiated an independent verification and validation process. And so that process has completed. And I'm really proud and excited to introduce our friends from CampusWorks, Liz Murphy, Joy Hatch, to do a presentation and share some of the findings, report, and recommendations for you all. So Liz, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am here today with Dr. Joy Hatch on behalf of an 8-person team from CampusWorks that has been working on the IV&V. Dr. Hatch is going to begin by walking us through the process, and then we'll talk through briefly some high-level observations and then some recommendations.
All right, so thank you for having us here. Thank you for entrusting this to CampusWorks. So what I want to do is kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we did, some of what we found, and then Liz is going to talk about recommendations type thing moving forward. So your Workday student go live was scheduled for March 1st. So think about it this way. Had you gone live, you would have been live for about a month. So that was like, I mean, a really short period of time ago. In December of 2022, you paused the implementation and said, hey, we need to take care of some issues because we know there's something happening. And that's where CampusWorks was engaged. And you engaged us to take a look at what was happening, where the status was, and also to make some recommendations. So that's what we've tried to do. And as part of this process, some of the things that we did was actually, it took us 2 weeks to do all of this work. And then it took us another week to put all the recommendations together. But in those 2 weeks, we wanted to talk to as many people as we could. We did 36 interviews with personnel, mostly from Joliet. We did talk to a few folks from AVAP and a few folks from Workday, so we did do those as well. But we knew that that wasn't everybody who was involved in this, and we wanted to get as many people involved as we could to give us feedback. So we also sent out requests for surveys. 121 surveys were sent. Surveys for requests, well, let me phrase that. 121 requests for surveys to ask them to complete the surveys were sent out. They were questions like, what's going right, what's going wrong, what do you see, what suggestions do you have, that type of thing. 68 survey responses came back. It's a pretty amazing number of surveys that came back. The completion rate there was over half. That's pretty amazing, actually. And people who responded to the surveys actually wrote these little mini novels along the way. So we had lots and lots and lots of feedback from the survey. So we actually had really good representation from everybody between the surveys and the interviews that we did. And then on top of that, we had over 150 documents that we reviewed, statement of works, project plans, communications that were sent, all kinds of information that we looked at. And we categorized those into the 6 categories that are up there. And it talks about implementation services, what happened with the implementation, what was the planning that went into that, what about transition, were you ready for the change? And then we looked at people, processes, and the final one was the technology, the data, and the configuration, and how was all that done. So those were the 6 categories that we lumped everything into. And I believe the next slide is just a... Oh, there we are. Good. So we had here, these are our very high level recommendations. So as you can see on there, one of the first things we talked about was the fact that the expectations on people, the expectations for the college in general they were not clear. And keep in mind that expectations and change and transitions as you go through that, it changes every day. So when you started the project, the expectations were this. 6 months into it, your expectations changed and now they're that. And so those expectations on exactly what was going to happen and what the impact was were never really set forth, and people never really understood that. The college in general didn't really take time to define new processes. So what happened is as you started implementing the ERP, it was like, oh, well, we need to do this. So let's just take our old process. Let's lift it, shift it over into Workday instead of trying to define a new process in a new system. And keep in mind, you're looking at technology that was started and processes for the college that were started 40 years ago. And now you're looking at something that's new and has a new way of doing things. So maybe those old processes don't work. And so that was one of the things that we saw as well. Staffing and turnover. We had this whole thing called the Great Resignation. Everybody keeps talking about this. After the pandemic, people probably said, I need to do more with my life. And so you had this whole Great Resignation that happened. It affected staffing for the college. It affected staffing for your implementation partner. And as a result, you were unable to do backfill. So you were unable to bring somebody in to help out with the project. It overloaded the staff here. And I think people just really started feeling burnt out. So that's a significant issue because you need people to make this work. Project governance, framework, and communications really need to be enhanced. There was some communication that went out. There was no feedback loop in the communications. There wasn't probably as many communications as should have been. Decisions were made and communications were not sent out about that, or maybe something else was happening and the communications weren't sent up. Communications, period, just need to be enhanced. Let's just leave it at that. Training, there was training for everybody, training for your implementation partner, training for your college folks, just to make sure that everybody has that same base level for knowledge, so that everybody comes into the process with knowing the same thing and everybody's not at a different place. Same thing that happens in a classroom, making sure that everybody's together in the same spot. And then the last one was the data governance. You've had a system for 40 years. In those 40 years, you've continued to make changes on that and use this field for this information. And then somebody else came along and populated some other information in there, and you're really not sure what data is in what field. That's a natural progression type thing. That's what happened there. But it hasn't been effective. There hasn't been a plan in place to do that. So even moving forward, there's that whole recommendation about let's get some data governance in there. But it has made your data migration very difficult, makes the data validation hard. And it's just part of it's due to technology, the other and the technical infrastructure, and the other part is just that the way that it's been used over 40 years. So those were our really high level recommendations there. Now I can turn it over to my partner back there to tell you a little bit about us and what she recommends. There's your commercial slide.
Thank you. So we thought before we made our recommendations, we should spend just 30 seconds on who CampusWorks is and why we're in a position to make recommendations. We've been in business for 23 years. We have 400 team members, and we have a practice that specializes in enterprise services. Our only business is higher education, right? We pride ourselves on helping institutions get unstuck, whatever the wicked problem is they're trying to solve. So that's our goal. Whether we do that with technology projects or enrollment or fundraising, whatever it is across the administrative gamut, that's what we do. So our team of enterprise services professionals are folks who have the depth and breadth of experience and knowledge of hundreds of implementations across many different software platforms and using very different implementation partners. So when we come into this, we're not really focusing on it just as you're using Workday and AVAP. We're coming into it with a much broader perspective saying, what is it that JJC needs to have a very successful implementation? And how do we keep everybody that's working on that implementation moving forward in a very constructive and healthy way? So what are the next steps for you based on our observations? Our recommendation is that you continue with Colleague for the student information system for the next 18 to 24 months. That may be very surprising to some of you who are listening, but what we observed is that, and what we saw in some of the documentation is that there were some things that it would have been really helpful if you had done before you started the implementation that you should really stop and do now in order to ensure that you have a successful implementation. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about each one of the 4 of these. Prepare to restart by doing some of the work that I was just referring to. Make sure that you are positioned for a strong future and a very strong implementation, and then begin again. So let's start first with the focus on essentially sticking with Workday. You are already live on Human Capital Management. You'll hear me refer to that as HCM, and also the finance system. Those 2 things are doing pretty well, but they're not exactly running optimally, right? Which is very normal, by the way. Normally, it takes a couple of years, Karen, I'm sorry, but it takes a little while for organizations to really burn into the new system and really become facile with it. Because even if your old system was inferior in terms of the way it processed information or the user interface that you were looking at every single day, you knew how to work around that. So even if it was idiosyncratic, that's what you were used to. Now you have a brand new system, and finding things, knowing what button to push, knowing what screen to go to can be a little bit confusing and a little bit frustrating, right? And so what we're recommending is that you've made big investments in the Workday product, continue and optimize HCM and finance, hold off on your implementation of student, and instead use Colleague, shore up Colleague, and we're going to talk about some other things that we're going to have you do that will really strengthen your preparations for going to another solution, the Workday Student Solution, or really doubling down on Colleague later. Fix the issues you have currently with Workday recruitment and admissions. You are currently live on that particular part of Workday, and I know it's been difficult, but you're up and running on it, and there is a natural sort of wall, if you will, between the recruitment and admissions side of an enterprise student information system and the registration pieces, all the other pieces of the SIS. So you really can operate Workday recruitment and admissions even while you're operating in Colleague, because typically what happens is all that information moves over once an applicant decides to become a student, right? So there's a natural break there. If you would stop Workday recruitment right now, you'd have to reconvert everything that's currently in Workday recruitment back to Colleague. And then again, when you went back to the Workday Student Information System, do it again. So it really makes sense to just fix the issues you're having right now with Workday recruitment and keep using that solution. That's also going to create some muscle memory in how you use the Workday product, right, as well. So then you'd be up on HCM, finance, and Workday recruitment. And then finally, optimize the project support moving forward. I think very disciplined project management, using strong project management tools and practices, and being sure and clear about the definitions. What does it mean for the project to be green? What are the criteria for the project turning yellow or red? What are the actions we take when the color changes and not in the right direction, right? Every implementation project is going to change colors during the course of the implementation. These are very challenging projects. So you don't need to be afraid of that, but you have to be comfortable and be very transparent about it. Everybody on the team needs to feel comfortable pulling the lever to say, I want to stop for a minute because I'm not sure we're doing this the way we should, and can I get some other people to get some buy-in here? And if you have a really strong governance structure, you can make that happen really easily and very naturally. So as you prepare for a restart, if you will, after your pause, you want to really understand the functionality that's available in the Workday product. It's been a good number of years since you purchased the product. It does a lot of cool things now that it maybe didn't even do in the demo, right? You will be able to appreciate its functionality more after you go through some of the preparatory work or recommendation. Prepare a data governance and a data readiness plan. Joy talked a little bit about what happens to data over the decades, right? Particularly when you're using the same system. And over time, it gets chunky and clunky and things don't end up in the right place. And it doesn't actually oftentimes represent the way you want to do work, right? Think about the last time you actually overhauled how you do business at JJC in your systems. You're changing the working around the systems, but not necessarily changing the systems to support it, which means your data isn't supporting it. Create a transition readiness plan. We use the word transition rather than change management. We use transition management because it's fluid. We follow William Bridges' model, which says before you can have a sustainable change, which is a true transition, which is active, you have to accept that there's something you want to change. You have to cross this neutral zone, which is an undefined period of time, and everybody gets there at different times before you can have a new beginning. This is very active, and it has to be responsive to what's happening. Different offices in the institution who are moving to the new product will respond to the product more quickly or more slowly. You have to have a plan that stands arm in arm with those people at the pace that they can go. Otherwise, you're going to leave them behind, and that's not going to create a sustainable environment for you as you move along. Make sure you have a good inventory of reports and integrations. That is a lot of work that you're going to invest in as you go through the process. And also really take a good hard look at what reports and integrations do you actually need in this modern environment, right? We get a lot more on our devices now. So do we really need a separate report for that? Once we move to a different system, do we really need all these integrations, or can we get the work done in a different way? Create a future state support model. How will the system remain alive, living, so you don't have clunky data in the future, so your business processes don't get stale? There's a whole support infrastructure that it's right to build now that you then adopt as you move forward. And that's really going to extend your investment in the new solution as you go forward. And then finally, and probably most importantly, create a project plan that really reflects reality, not wishes, right? So sometimes when we go into these projects, we say, well, we've got to get there by this date. But do you actually have the hands and feet or the dollars to get you there in that time frame? You have to respect the fact that everybody at the institution is doing a regular full-time job. And if it's just full-time, you're lucky, right? It's more like time and a half. And then you're adding an implementation onto it. And even if you have outside help, you really need to reflect the realities of what people are dealing with. As you prepare for the future, one of the most pressing needs we think you have is to redesign your business processes. Really take a look, step back from the technology, step back from how you do business today, define the student and employee experiences you really want to create, and build the business processes from scratch. And once you build them and document them, they're the blueprint for how you want the system to behave. Some people say, well, if I don't understand the new solution, how can I tell it what to do? You first need to understand what you want it to do so you can configure it to do it. And sometimes we fall prey to being too focused on the technology and not focused enough on the kind of business we're trying to conduct here. Think about how different JJC operates today, post-pandemic, than you did even 3 years ago. Then go back to the time you implemented Colleague. Have you ever really stopped and overhauled Colleague to say, we don't work like that anymore? We need to change how we work? The product is still being purchased today. Colleague is still being purchased by schools today, but they're implementing it with a modern view of how to use it. You purchased it so early that there's probably vestiges of old ways of doing things that are cluttering your ability to use it to its maximum advantage. So we make the recommendation to pause and use the Colleague student system for this 18 to 24 month period, really believing that you can thrive if you do that. But you have to look at your business processes to be able to make that possible, and then use those business processes to implement the new SIS when you're ready to do that. Work with the implementation partner on future steps. Have a really clear understanding of what you will be responsible for, what you will take the lead in, and what they will take the lead in. Understand where the collaboration is necessary. Understand if you step up to own something, where those resources are going to come from within the institution, right? If you have gaps where gaps in resourcing, you're either going to extend your time frame, you're going to have to make investments that you didn't plan on. So be really honest about where you stand, not wishing that somebody could fit this in to their schedule. Address the project structure. We really believe you should have a project manager for HCM and finance. Even though you're live, you have things to do to optimize those two products. There's more training to be done, there's more configuration, there's more features that you can adopt, and have a separate project manager for the student information system implementation. You may also consider having a project manager to get you through this transition period, which will be significant. There are a lot of moving parts. We're talking about data governance. We're talking about cleaning data. We're talking a bit about business process design. We're talking about maybe optimizing parts of Colleague because you're going to use it for a while. So be real clear about the project structure and how you're going to manage that. The monies you invest now will pay great dividends on the back end. You'll find that you'll have a much clearer expectation of what it's going to take to implement the new student information system, and you'll be much clearer about the resources, so you'll have a realistic schedule and a realistic budget that you'll be able to stick to. We also suggest that you continue to conduct these administrative reviews, either at milestones or every 6 months. It's kind of like getting ready for a board meeting, right? Everybody on the staff works really hard to make sure they know that everything's up to date and all the actions are clear, right? The real value of getting ready to talk with all of you in a board meeting is all the work you do to get ready, which keeps things on track, right? So that's the idea of the administrative review, and to really get somebody from the outside to say, great job, or have you asked this question? Have you really looked at this? So it doesn't get too far down the road and you have a lot bigger problem that you need to solve. So it's time to get past getting by and get back to happy. Thanks so much for the confidence you've placed in us. We've enjoyed being your partner on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Think we're good?
All right.
Yep.
That took care of 4 and 5, right?
All the way up to,
Great. That's great. All right, well, that only leaves one thing left to do, and but before we do that, I want to thank everybody for the work that we've put into this, especially the new guy here. We'll still call you a new guy here, so.
It hasn't been a year yet.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
right.
so, thanks for that. Thanks, and Yolanda, I wouldn't forget you. And the rest of the staff here, I couldn't even imagine trying to do that with just me doing it, so, and the rest of us should all realize that. So please, remember that, and, and then unless anybody has anything else to do today, we would ask for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.